I generally am called upon to speak of two different fronts in which news is happening. And we'll start with the news of the unreal, with the phenomenal plane that is unraveling in its last phase of chaos and conflict before it is ultimately resolved in the complete return to consciousness of the absolute, supreme, luminous presence of God. So here's the headline. We are in a duel between the Neocons and the catacons. I suppose everyone remembers the catacons. We studied that concept. I believe it was in the second letter to the Thessalonians by St. Paul, in which that was presented. And you remember we spoke about how Pope Benedict resigned because he said, the time of the catacons is over. I can't hold back the coming of the Antichrist anymore, not even in the church. So the catechon, of course, the word from Greek means one who restrains the demonic forces from being finally unleashed and destroying the world. The Antichrist, the power, the henchman of the Antichrist, as St. Paul would put it. And so we are in this situation in the world where we are at a moment in which that battle will be finally determined in a number of areas simultaneously, in fact, in every region of the world and of consciousness. So, for example, we have this situation between India and Pakistan. And India, did their attack that they were pressured and pressuring to complete in a very minor way so that it wouldn't escalate. The catacons were trying to keep it from becoming an all-out nuclear war, in which apparently they lost 5 fighter jets in this very minor engagement. So they got a black eye, and it's possible for Pakistan to say, okay, we'll stop there. But they seem to be saying, no, they're just beginning their counterattack. So we'll see if the catechons versus the neocons win out in that argument. And the same, of course, is true in the situation between Russia and the West. Peace wasn't able to be made. Will it be restrained, or will it now escalate into the ultimate disaster, which is being threatened by sending some kind of a missile into Red Square on Victory Day with many world leaders present, which would be enough to ignite that final conflagration in itself. And of course, we have the trade war with China that, again, is right on the balance between an ultimate escalation and a tapering off. And the forces that are on the cataconic side, let's say, are actually seeming to have some kind of stick-to-itiveness and let's say popular support, which is apparent in Romania, it's apparent in Germany, apparent in many places in which political opposition to the neocons and the war hawks versus the doves, we could also put it, seems to be a struggle that is reaching its culmination. And we can see the same kind of a final reckoning, let's say, in consciousness that is also happening in terms of decisive steps that every individual consciousness is making, either toward God or into the lower death drive, and a consciousness that is determined to remain identified with the body and the ego and its opinions and attitudes and its aggressivity and paranoia, versus those who have chosen the upper death drive of realization of the absolute radiance of the self, filling every moment with the blissful presence of the perfection of the beauty and truth of the real that pervades the hologram when one's third eye is open and there is luminous clarity in perception. And so this is that moment of truth in which the world will determine its own final destiny, and how gradual or how rapid that is brought into manifestation and then taken out of manifestation. So that's the news of the unreal. And I think probably everyone is aware of those kinds of events that are underway, that are bringing some very radical changes to life, everyday life, for everyone, not just in the West, but especially in those countries in which there may soon, or if not already, be food shortages, medicine shortages of many commodities that were taken for granted. And the way that one responds to that, spiritually or in a kind of, let's say, physical desperation, rather than a turning to take refuge with God and with that level of consciousness that is beyond fear and beyond desire. And so the mission of Sat Yoga is to help people who wish to get to that level that is fearless and that is able to face the unfoldment of the unreal without being touched by it, in that state of asparsha, in which there is no effect, because there is no stain of impurity within the consciousness that could be affected by the apparent unfoldment of events in the illusory, holographic, cinematic spectacle that we are completing and participating in as we complete our own hero's journey of return to our own original and natural state of God consciousness, one way or another, through the death of the body or the death of the ego while the body lives, or the death of the cosmos. But everything will be absorbed back into the light of the 0 point of the Godhead, without exception, with leaving no trace of any suffering, of any manifestation. And this is what all the religions have prophesied, that there is return, rapturous return for those who are in the upper death drive, redemption, and the restoration of a kingdom of heaven. So the question for every Sat Yogi is, what part are you playing in this theodrama? And the part that you're playing will depend upon what you want. What do you really want out of what remains of your life? Are you satisfied with the crumbs of jouissance, with the fantasies of an infantile ego that thinks it will solve its problems with some kind of event in chakra 1, 2, or 3? Or will you not stop your self-enquiry until you have recognized your ultimate, absolute, eternal self, and know yourself in that ultimate state of non-duality in which even the physical form of the body that had been the vehicle of the individual consciousness is now illumined and shining with the light of the infinite self that perceives God in everyone and in everything as the radiant sameness of the absolute infinite intelligence who is dreaming all of us into the ultimate awakening. And so we have been given that free will to make this choice, and the time in which to make it, and the motivation to make it because of the increasing chaos, suffering, and exhaustion, confusion, incoherence, and insanity of the ego mind that becomes ever more unbearable and intolerable in the ego's ability or lack of ability to control its own mental stream, its own emotional reactions, its own destructive, self-destructive tendencies. And therefore the drive, the urge, the essential need for transcendence and God realization becomes the highest priority.